One of the things you want to do in an injection attack is ascertain what account the web application is using to connect to the database, and then more specifically, what rights that application has. So is it just going to let us read data out of the system, or can we write it? Or can we drop and create objects? The rights of this database account is absolutely pivotal to how successful you can be in your attack. Now we're going to look at a couple of different things here. And the first one I want to look at is just getting the identity of the current user. So here's what we're going to do. We'll close off V12 again, and this time we'll make our equivalency test equal to current_user. And let's run that. So now we get the username that the web app is connecting to the database with. It's called Hack Yourself First Restricted. Now this particular name is not necessarily going to tell you a lot. In fact, I've created this account so that it has enough rights to demonstrate SQL injection attacks, but not enough rights to completely destroy the database. Hence why I named it restricted. What you will often see though is accounts like SA, server admin, that has God rights over the entire database. And all too often you see developers making web apps connect to the database with this account, because it sure makes permissions easy when the web app can do everything. Nothing is restricted. But of course that is a terrible security decision, and you can often disclose that shortcoming just by looking at the current user. Regardless of what the name of the user itself discloses, we can start looking at what rights the user has. So let's try this. I'm going to change the current user test here to select is_role member, and then I'm going to pass the name of a role that I want to test for. And I'm going to start easy. Let's start with DB Data Reader, which is a SQL Server role which grants data reader rights. And by default, it'll grant data reader rights to every table in the database. Now this function, is_role member, will either return true or false. In fact, it returns a 1 or a 0. And that's going to give us a slightly different response to what we're used to. Let's run this. Now here's the thing. We've actually got vehicles in the result. So this is not an internal exception. And it's not an internal exception because this has returned a 1. 1 can be tested as being equal to 1 because remember this is our equivalency test. 1 equals. But really what we've got ourselves here is a Boolean-based blind injection attack because the page has loaded. So remember what we're testing for here is and 1 equals and then some value. So if it is equal to 1, we're going to get results. So from this we can surmise that yes, this query just here, select is_role member, DB_data reader, is true. So the user the web app is connecting with is a member of the data reader role. Let's check for data writer. Also results. So the user is also a member of DB_data writer. So now we know that this account, again by default, unless it's been explicitly overridden on one of the actual database tables or columns, has the ability to write to everything. So that's useful information. Let's go one step further and check for DB owner. And now we have no results. So this query must have returned a 0. The identity the web app is connecting to the database under is not a member of DB owner. So what that tells us is that we won't be able to create objects, we won't be able to drop objects. And again, I've had to do that in this system so that I can keep it public for you to use it without someone coming by and just absolutely destroying everything. So that's good, but what it has told us is that anyone that can come by this web application can read and write from everything, and that is way too excessive. And later on in this course, when we talk about SQL injection mitigations, we're going to talk about the principle of least privilege and how you can restrict the access rights the web application has when it connects to the database server. But of course, this is a sample vulnerable application, and it is meant to show these bad practices. So that's establishing account identity and rights. Let's now move on and see how we can start to find other databases on the same system.